Troy Aikman and Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl together. They did so with enough drama to fill a book, which is exactly what Skip Bayless did. Aikman was an incredible high school athlete, and he knew it. He had the opportunity to go pro in football or baseball, told the Mets when they wanted to draft him that he'd need a $200,000 signing bonus, and when they declined, he headed to college to throw the pigskin. Aikman went to Oklahoma in 1984, an opportunity that arose on his first encounter with Barry Switzer.
I offered him a scholarship first time I ever saw Troy Aikman. I walked up to him and said, I want you to start thinking about playing for the Sooners. You'll be a great player at the University of Oklahoma. First time I ever saw him throw a football.
He was 6'4" with a cannon for an arm, which, considering how much Switzer liked to run the ball, made for a somewhat surprising pairing. Switzer had been coaching the Sooners since 1967, making his name as their offensive coordinator with his wishbone offense. Thanks to this, Oklahoma was pretty good. They averaged 472 rushing yards per game in 1971, and in 1973, he was named head coach. He abandoned the wishbone in the early 80s to make use of running back Marcus Dupree's skill set, but by the time Aikman stepped on campus, they were back in an offense that would use the QB's legs more than his arm. Entering 1985, Oklahoma was ranked number 1 with national title hopes, but in their 4th game of the season, Miami came to town, led by Jimmy Johnson and Michael Irvin. In the second quarter, Aikman took this sack by Jerome Brown and suffered a broken fibula. While he missed time, freshman Jamale Holloway stepped in. Oklahoma won out and beat Penn State for the national championship, Switzer's third. Watching this success from the sideline, Aikman knew that he needed to get out of Norman. He wasn't all that pleased with how he was being used, having come to Oklahoma thinking Switzer would actually use him for his arm. But before the game against Miami, Aikman was only throwing the ball 13 times per game. He met with his coach, who called up some schools, and Aikman headed to UCLA. That move allowed Aikman to play to his potential, and in 1999, he was selected first overall in the NFL draft, starting his journey in Dallas. A few months later, Switzer also had a change of scenery. He resigned from Oklahoma, as the Sooners were put on probation for a lengthy list of NCAA violations, which included their quarterback being arrested for selling cocaine to an FBI agent. Aikman's pro career got off to a rough start in Dallas. His new head coach, Jimmy Johnson, didn't quite believe in his abilities, and even brought in his quarterback from Miami to compete with the former number 1 overall draft pick. They managed to find their way after a couple Super Bowl wins, but then a separate beef led to this.
We have mutually decided that I would no longer be the head football coach with the Dallas Cowboys.
Unfortunately, Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones never really talk about what happened. They like to keep all their feelings to themselves. So we're left talking about Jimmy's replacement. Jerry Jones believed that any coach could lead this team to another Super Bowl. In his mind, Jimmy didn't do anything special. It was the players that he had handpicked who did the winning. So, with his players in mind, he thumbed through his Rolodex and found his man.
We got a job to do, and we're gonna do it, baby!
Jerry hired the guy that Aikman had already gotten away from once. From the start, the quarterback wasn't exactly at ease. While he did endorse the coach, Aikman also told the media that, "I'll be here for 7 more years. I don't know if Switzer will be here that long." Switzer, on the other hand, wasn't too concerned with how he and Troy would get along.
No, we're not letting him transfer. He ain't leaving this time. Jerry made sure of that when he paid him $50 million, so.
Both of them wanted success, and as Troy put it, there was only one thing that mattered to keep things afloat. That was the way it had been under Jimmy Johnson, who had set a standard that Switzer now needed to match. Aikman said that with Jimmy, winning was a way of life. When Jimmy said we needed an extra practice, or a tougher practice, we knew he was right. We gained a respect for his insight into what would make us better. This is something Barry has to achieve. Easier said than done. Before he had even coached a game, there were questions about Switzer's leadership.
What a lot of players are saying, and what a lot of coaches are saying, that assistant coaches are having problems with assistant coaches, and players want you to step up and stop.
I think you don't know what you're talking about, and they don't either, Dale Hansen. There is no problem here on this staff in the Dallas Cowboys.
The Cowboys did end up going 12-4 in each of the first 2 seasons under Barry Switzer, so good job, Barry. But in December of '95, it started to become more clear that those wins came in spite of some slow-cooked beef. Reports surfaced that the pair had some philosophical differences. Aikman seemed to still be upset about Johnson's departure and wanted to make sure that the team didn't get too comfortable. He also felt like no one else was doing the same.
Why don't we have a coach that gets over there and does something about it? Instead, we want to go over and pat everybody on the ass, and they haven't done a job all night. Guys out there off, and nobody says anything about it. We got a head coach that won't say anything about it. We got coaches offensively that won't do anything about it.
He viewed Switzer as being too easy on players, while Switzer saw Aikman as something other than a leader on the team. Former assistant coach John Blake, who at this point had departed for Oklahoma, had told Switzer that Aikman called one of his receivers a racial slur. Blake warned that there is a belief in the locker room of Aikman getting on his black teammates more than his white teammates, and during a team meeting in the regular season, Switzer brought up this incident. That upset Aikman, who responded by telling Switzer that he was part of the problem. All of this went public during the lead up to the Cowboys' Super Bowl appearance against the Steelers. The rest of the team had to shift their focus from the game to discussing the situation with the media. With everything in the open, when Switzer was asked about his relationship with Aikman, he didn't sugarcoat it.
Am I happy with my relationship with Aikman? As I've told you before, I don't know if Chuck Noll had a great relationship with Terry Bradshaw or not. It wasn't important. He won 4 Super Bowls, wasn't it, right? That's the bottom line. I'm not going to drink RC Colas and double date and, with them. We're not going to do those things. It's not part of the game. It's not important.
Dallas would go on to win the Super Bowl. The pair even shared a handshake on the sideline. But despite Aikman saying they'd be good as long as they were winning, this victory magnified the feud. Things became even more public thanks to a mutual frenemy. Do people still say frenemy?
I don't know, Will. Can you just read the script?
Okay. Enter Skip Bayless. He'd been researching his next book about the Dallas Cowboys. He interviewed both player and coach, and as they gave their answers, he wanted to make sure the other had a chance to respond, getting juicier and juicier comments in the process. This snowballed until Aikman reached out to Switzer to talk in mid-March of '96, which was reportedly the first time they spoke off the field in 4 months since the meeting when Barry had called Troy out. Aikman, through his interviews with Bayless, had learned that someone from Switzer's camp had encouraged the writer to look into Aikman's sexuality, an often talked about topic within the Dallas media. They were essentially dumbfounded that a man who was the Cowboys' quarterback and viewed by many as handsome wasn't married. Bayless's source was using Aikman's sexuality to try and damage the QB's macho image, in hopes that this would benefit Switzer when Aikman inevitably went to Jerry Jones to give the Cowboys owner a him or me type ultimatum. Switzer was convinced that Aikman, along with his friends in the media, were trying to get him fired and bring in Norv Turner. Not an unreasonable thought, considering Aikman was quoted as saying, "I don't give Barry any credit for our wins, nor do I blame him for any of our losses. Really, I'm not sure what he does as a head coach." Switzer, who inherited a great team, had been really just trying not to ruin it. Unfortunately, the leader on that team couldn't do more than coexist with him. A couple months after their talk, Switzer apologized for how he handled the John Blake-caused incident before the Super Bowl. Aikman said he wasn't dwelling on the past. They both moved on to the '97 season, where they went 10-6 and Aikman got his final playoff victory. That was followed up with a 6-10 campaign, Switzer's first ever losing season as a head coach, and he'd retire not long after. As soon as the Cowboys hired Chan Gailey as Switzer's replacement, Aikman let everyone know how excited he was about his new coach. As for Switzer, it was clear he still had mixed feelings about his former quarterback. He admitted he liked him, but thought Troy had demons which caused him to do things the way he does. Once Switzer retired, Aikman didn't speak much about the feud, and even acknowledged the former coach in his Hall of Fame enshrinement speech, just without much flair. Aikman didn't deny that Switzer was a good coach, but unlike the rest of the Cowboys, he knew what Switzer used to be.
The Barry Switzer that I played for at Oklahoma was not the Barry Switzer that I played for with the Dallas Cowboys.
Barry had lost his intensity, which is what Aikman felt the Cowboys needed at that time to avoid complacency. While they proved they didn't have to get along to win, it probably would have been easier if they tried. Or it at least would have delayed Skip Bayless from becoming a household name. Since you're here, check out our video about the worst NFL coaching hire. Or just watch another beef, subscribe to SB Nation, yada yada yada.